So maybe you find yourself in a relationship where you don't know if you should stay in this relationship or whether or not you should leave the relationship. And you're sort of caught in this internal anxiety, this tug of war, never quite knowing exactly what to do. Well, if that's the case, I'm going to give you a lot of clarity in this video because there are some very measurable things that will help you know what to do. And there's some reasons inside of you, your subconscious programming, that might be keeping you frozen and keeping you from taking action. So if you're new here, welcome. I'm Ketra Thompson, and what I do with my clients is I help them reframe the subconscious programming that's driving their unwanted behavior through custom hypnotherapy, relationship coaching, and attachment style coaching. So we go all the way back on a subconscious level and we reframe those beliefs that are running the show, because your subconscious mind is running over 95% of everything you think, feel, and do. So if you'd like to learn more about that or set up a completely complimentary consultation call, you can check out the links in the description below where you can do that. You and I can chat and we can get to the heart of what's going on with you specifically, because each person is unique. So you'll want to check that out. Okay, so there are actually some reasons that we end up in relationships that maybe aren't serving us well. And it's because of the mindset that we had when we entered the relationship, the emotional energy that we were in when we entered the relationship, our past experiences, and our assumptions about the other person, our projections about who they are, who we want them to be, who we wish for them to be, but also their behavior in the beginning versus what it turns into. So there's a lot of factors here to consider, but you want to kind of zoom out from your situation and you want to look at the big picture of what state of mind you have been in and what projections you might be putting onto the relationship. Now, some relationships start especially with a dismissive avoidant or even a narcissistic type person with the love bombing phase. Now, for the narcissist, this has an intent and a purpose, and they want to love bomb you. They want to trap you, get you to commit so they can let down the guard, change their behavior, and now they don't have to worry about trying so hard. And so there's a very strategic and almost malicious goal to people like that. But if you're dealing with someone who's dismissive avoidant, they actually don't have a malicious goal if they're ethically dismissive avoidant. They just don't feel the pressure of someone wanting a commitment in the initial stages, and they just think, oh, this is great. This person is great. This feels so good. Here's a place for me to pour out all these feelings and excitement. And as soon as it sort of gets real, or there are real expectations that come, they pull back and they start acting different. And so if you've been in a push-pull dynamic with a dismissive avoidant, on again, off again, any of that, you kind of are aware of that pattern. And even sometimes you think, well, things aren't so bad, or things are okay, or there's some confusion around it. The first thing you want to do is you want to take notes, collect data, whatever you want to call it, around two things. How do I feel when I am with this person? And number two, how do I feel when I am not with this person? So I want to explain. The how do I feel when I'm with someone is a great thing to ask yourself. It's important. You want to make sure you're feeling seen and heard, and that someone else is actually curious about you, and you are mutually sharing in each other's world and each other's thoughts, and you're curious about each other, that there's a mutuality to the time you share with someone, not just a you doing whatever they want, them kind of always doing the talking. If you really have to dial in, like, when I'm with this person, how do I feel? Do I just feel good because I'm in their presence, but they're not actually seeing me? Or am I being seen? So that's the first qualifier. And it's very tricky because if you're dealing with a dismissive avoidant, then you actually probably do feel quite good in their presence. They're good at tuning in to your needs. They're good at anticipating your needs. They're good at jumping through the hoops they think are expected of them. And so you do tend to feel very cared for in their presence. But if you pay attention really closely, they probably don't go deep. They probably will share a lot about their past, a lot about their experiences, their past frustrations, but they're not going to go deep with you specifically about what your hopes and dreams are, what your goals are, what your feelings are. That all gets kept pretty surface. Now, the second thing that you're going to measure is how you feel when you are not with them. Because early on in a relationship, especially with an ethical DA, there's a lot of communication, there's a lot of texting, there's a lot of calls, there's a lot of plans being made, there's a lot of intensity. And it makes you think, oh, this person really is all in. Like, this is so great. And you realize when things start to get real, whether you've had a breakup cycle or not yet, there's this pullback where when you're not with them, you start to wonder, what happened? They used to connect with me. They used to communicate. They used to text me. Why does it take them 24 hours to respond now? Why does it take them 2 days before I hear from them? Why does it take a week? Why aren't they making active plans with me? Why am I the one asking about when we're going to see each other next all the time now instead of them? You start to notice when you're not with them that there's a level of anxiety and uncertainty under the surface. You're kind of always waiting to hear from them. You're waiting to know where you stand. You don't know where you stand. You're not sure how they feel. But in the beginning, you probably thought they were like head over heels for you. So it feels very confusing. And then you're with them and they anticipate your needs and they are really attentive and you go, oh, yeah, everything's great. But then you're not with them and it's silent. And you're left to wonder, where do I stand in this person's life? Am I a priority at all? Why don't I understand what they need from me? Why don't they tell me how they feel? Where's the communication? And there's a very big undercurrent of uncertainty. So one thing that you might notice if you're in a situation like that is that you start making excuses for that person. You start thinking, well, they're just really busy. Well, I know they're overwhelmed. I know they have a lot on their mind. I know they care because they've shown me before. So I'm just going to be patient and wait patiently and give them all the time and space that they need. And you start making these excuses, and you've got to stop that because your focus is external at that point. You're trying to be very gracious and understanding of the other person without giving yourself the same level of consideration. How am I feeling? What do I need? Is this serving me? And when you shift that focus back to you, everything changes. So one of the reasons we do this is because in our upbringing, we are conditioned a certain way. We are conditioned to people please or to always think of others first or to behave a certain way. And our attachment style is formed during the same time that we are creating our subconscious programming in our brain. So it's all very intertwined and it feels like we're doing the right thing. And so the healing process changes that, especially when you do the subconscious work so that we can reframe those subconscious beliefs with actual truth and not the misinformation that went into the programming in the first place, so you can see clearly. And you can ask yourself, okay, what do I need? And when you do that, you might not have a clear answer at first. But if you do the deeper work and you're patient with yourself, you're going to start realizing, well, I need connection. Well, I need someone to talk to. I need someone who wants to see me, who wants to know who I am at the deepest level. I need real connection. So the next question is, how are you going to get it? You're not going to get it from this person because they're already not giving it to you. So you've got to stop trying to manipulate or manage someone else's feelings, emotions, behaviors, how they react to you, and you've got to let them do them. And what you've got to start doing is meeting that need yourself. So you go, okay, how can I meet this need myself? Friends, maybe? I can spend more time with them. I can be more intentional. Maybe I don't have very many friends. Okay, how can I make some new friends? Where can I go? How can I connect? How can I be the one that leads the way instead of waiting for people to come to me and connect with me? How can I try something new and start a conversation with someone else? How can I be the one that says, hey, can we exchange numbers? Maybe you want to walk every Saturday morning. Whatever that is, you've got to start being proactive in your own life, meeting those needs yourself. And it's better to do that before you make a decision about the relationship you're in. And the reason is once you start meeting those needs yourself, you're not going to be coming from a place of fear or desperation or starvation, which is big. Emotional starvation will make you hang on to things longer than you ever should have. And so you've got to start feeding yourself so that you aren't operating from a place of deprivation. And the other thing you want to realize is that you've probably given your partner too much credit too fast. Because when they're love bombing you or giving you lots of attention and affection, we tend to believe, oh, they really believe this way or that way. And we tend to assign them the feelings we are interpreting. And instead of doing that, we don't want to give them that credit. We need to realize that behavior requires consistency over time in order to see the reality of it. So you don't believe words, you only believe behavior, but that behavior has to be coupled with consistency. And the whole time you've got to be meeting your own needs so you're not acting out of a place of emotional starvation. And you've got to be aware of the subconscious programming that's telling you things that simply aren't true about your own self-worth, about how this time it'll be different. You've got to deal with those things that are actually keeping you stuck, and you've got to start believing behavior and coupling that with meeting your own needs. But the problem with this is I can give you all of these steps, but the implementation of them gets really tricky because the subconscious programming is running over 95% of everything you think, feel, and do. So it's calling the shots. It's the one that's silently in the back of your mind saying, you can't do that. That doesn't work. No one's going to like you. You won't be acceptable, or whatever the story is, right? You're not good enough. You've got to deal with that story, which you may or may not be consciously aware of. Like, if this soundtrack's been running in the back of your mind your entire life, it's a little tricky to become aware of it. And so you've got to start listening and tuning in, because it's the background noise that you've had in your programming your whole life, and you may not even be aware what it's saying to you, the messages that it's sending and the patterns that it's creating. And so you've got to not just point the finger at the other person for not meeting your needs. You've got to look at yourself and say, why am I not being proactive about meeting my needs? And when you do start meeting your own needs, then you can look at that other person, your partner, with some objectivity and say, okay, I am now meeting some of my own needs. And I'm also aware of their needs. This is the point where you have communicated, right? You don't just do this and not communicate. You share your needs with your partner. You ask for what you need in a very measurable, clear way. And you give it the time so that you can witness whether or not they actually will follow through or not. And this is the part of the only believe behavior coupled with consistency. So you'll know, I have shared my needs. I've shared my desires. I've shared my hopes for what I'd like this relationship to look like and feel like. But I'm not seeing the other person do any of it. And I'm also not seeing the other person express their needs to me, because usually they might, if you're dealing with a people pleaser, they're going to say, yeah, okay, I can do that. I got that. It's no big deal. And then they don't follow through. That's big. You've got to watch for that. But the other thing is, they're probably not sharing their needs with you. They don't know how to identify their needs. They don't know what their needs are. They don't know what their feelings are telling them. And they aren't sharing their needs with you, except for maybe their need for space or distance. And even then, they usually don't say it. They just ghost. They just stop replying. Any little bit of expression of their need feels like too much, and they just shut down completely. And so these are things to watch for. These are things to be aware of, that you're sharing your needs, that they're sharing their needs. And if they're not, that's a problem. And if they're not collaborating with you about your needs, that's a problem too. So there's so many layers I could go into with this, of course, especially with the dismissive avoidant attachment style, and how confusing that can feel versus how you feel with them and when you're not with them. But it's important to ask both questions, because I hear a lot of advice given on just notice how you feel when you're with someone. Well, that doesn't work well with a dismissive avoidant, because you usually feel pretty good when you're with them. You've got to assess how you feel when you are not with them. Do your feelings matter to them? You're not being communicated with. You're not being connected to. You're just off floating in oblivion, wondering what this is, or what to do, or when you'll see that person next, or how they feel, or even if you've crossed their mind. And so it's just as important, if not more important, to notice how you feel when you are not with that person and start meeting those needs in yourself so that you are not putting all of your focus and attention on them meeting the need. And that's going to help you get clarity. And it's also going to help you walk away when a relationship is not serving you. If it is serving you, these things are going to be mutual. You're both going to share your needs. You're both going to collectively brainstorm ideas to meet them. You're both going to want to see and know and understand the other person, not just yourself. So I hope that was helpful. And of course, as always, if you want to get a deeper understanding and really dive into your specific situation, set up that complimentary consultation call. There's no charge for doing that. You and I get to chat and we get to the heart of what's going on with you so that I can make my best recommendation. And then it's totally up to you whether that's a recommendation you want to take or you want to take a different route. It doesn't matter to me. But this is a way for you to get some clarity and to fully understand what's going on underneath the surface for you. So you can set that up. And as always, if this content resonates with you, I really appreciate it if you could click like and subscribe so that you can be notified every time I post a new video. And until next time, I hope you curate a life by your own design.